Hey guys, so it's a rain day today, and so I decided to do a cold start on my big truck out here, and I've been waiting for Triplet, the McCall man, to do his cold start on his truck. So I was like, well, I better go do my own. So that's what I did, and I just fired it up just a second ago. Probably been sitting for a month, I don't know. And it's a 7.3, and I thought maybe I'd talk a little bit about the 7.3 Power Stroke. Holds about 14 liters of oil. A little difference between some other diesel engines is it has high pressure oil. So it has a pump that pressurizes the oil up to 3,000 psi and has a regulator on it and ICP, so through the sensor and the regulator and the pressure pump, it'll send that oil into the rails and to the injectors, and then the wiring harness controls how much fuel goes into the injector, how far it goes down. And so depending on the load or what's going on with the truck, you'll have different pressures. So I think if you're testing these things, if it's not running, you need to have 500 psi of oil to even actuate the injectors to work. So, and these also have a problem as well as the 6 liters for having stiction issues. 6 liters are worse. Their injectors are built differently, but mine has the same thing, where when it's cold, the injectors will stick and miss, and so they'll keep missing. Mine misses for about 10 minutes, and then as soon as the temperature, like the coolant and the temperature of the engine, reaches the certain, whatever its happy point is, the injector will just stop missing completely, and it'll be like normal, completely smooth. And so that's just kind of a common problem once these get. Mine has 316,000 kilometers on it, so probably has 1 or 2 injectors that are missing. They also have a wastegate, a flap in the turbo that when they're cold, I don't think it's cold enough now, but it'll actually with the coolant temp. There's 2 different sensors on these trucks. If the coolant is at a certain, if it's cold enough, it'll flop like maybe halfway, and you'll hear this sound, and that just, I guess, creates back pressure and warms the truck up. And then on the side, on the passenger side, you'll have a little tube off the exhaust manifold that goes up to a sensor, which measures the back pressure, and a lot of times those get plugged up with carbon and the way they designed them, and when they get plugged up, that sensor doesn't read properly, and you'll have that wastegate stay on like too long, and you'll have some drivability issues, because with these trucks, when the turbos aren't working right, it really, you can tell with the performance of the engine. The turbo is what makes these engines go good with a lot of power. So one injector came online there. I think I have 2 injectors going bad on this thing. So yeah, I really like a lot of guys like the Dodges and with the 5.9s and the newer ones. They're good engines. I mean, they're probably more reliable than this Power Stroke, but I like these Fords, and they have longer connecting rods, which I was taught, because they have longer connecting rods and the way they're built, they have a up and down on the piston. It's a smoother, it creates a smoother running engine. So it's not like a farm tractor when you fire it up and you're running it, which the Dodges seem to be pretty, they rattle. And I mean, I like any diesel, so it don't matter, but that's why these can run at higher RPMs. I mean, you still can't take them really over 3,000, but they love to run 2,500, like 2,500, 3,000, and they're smooth. So yeah, I'm just rambling about my truck because every once in a while I just gotta go sit in it and fire it up. I don't have it insured right now, so back when I had my 2001 same truck, but it was not dually, and it was long wheelbase. I think this is a long wheelbase too, I don't know. And so I did a lot of research on these. Just, I never had any issues with them, but I just wanted to know how they worked, because that's how I like to know how things work. So I know the problems that can happen with these things, and they are simple. Like, people think they're more complex, but they're not. I mean, you have a wiring harness, you have an engine, you got diesel, and I actually think the high pressure oil is a good system, because if you have a leak, or you're oh, I just touched the brake pedal, but they will not run if the oil gets too low, because the low pressure oil feeds the top, which that's the reservoir for the high pressure oil. So if your oil level gets too low, it's not going to pump it up to the top, and so you rarely have like bearings going bad because you run out of oil. Like literally, they'll just stop running. Another thing is, a lot of times they'll have the problem with where the dipstick goes into the oil pan. That nut, well, it's not the nut that's the problem, but there's a big O-ring on the back, and that'll start going. And a lot of people, they're not usually that tight, but if you tighten it, once you already have a leak, it'll make it worse, and it'll squash the O-ring out. And then if you take that nut off and then take the dipstick out and you're going to change that O-ring, you do not want to let it go down in there, because you'll never get it out, and you can't take the oil pan off these friggin' things without removing the engine. So wow, you have to take the bolts off the motor mounts, and you got to lift it up, and people have done it. I've researched it, and it's just, you want to use small pliers, channel locks. Yeah, I think the channel locks, you know, the ones that lock onto the thing, so that you can push it in there, slide the O-ring over that without letting it all go down in the oil pan, because then you're going to have some issues. So yeah, this thing warmed up real quick, less than 10 minutes, and I may have an injector it's too far gone now. It has a slight little miss to it, but injectors are like, you can get for $250 for an injector. It's going to cost you about $4,500 if you want to do all of them. And yeah, that's that wastegate I was talking about. And yeah, overall, it's a good old truck. I bought it for, I think, $3,000. Well, I know I bought it for $3,000. He was asking $4,500 for it. Used to tow granite countertops, and he got a box truck so he could go over on the ferry cheaper, because you had to tow a big trailer, right? And so now he just puts them in the back of the, and so I knew it had a lot of kilometers, but I fired it up and it had that miss, It had been sitting for probably over a half a year. But because I knew what I knew, it warmed up, and I wouldn't have bought it if that mist was there all the time. But after about 10 minutes, the coolant came up. She smoothed out and she ran good, real good. So it's had some issues. I've done some brakes on it, but that's just maintenance, right? And I got my car, my 2004 Honda, and that thing, it's a good car. So I got reliable wheels, and I got an old truck that works good. And she's a Lariat. She's the good one. But Lariat with the 7.3 in her. Yeah. Yeah, boy. So, McCullough, man, let's see your cold start video if you're still doing it. Alright. Out.